Anyone wants to share what they did? I just see Gerald sharing in the chat box. Divide says Kevin. Who agrees with Kevin and who agrees with Gerald? Let me hear you. Who agrees with Kevin and who agrees with Gerald? Found the differences, Alan. Okay. So we have three opinions, right? We have that we added both numbers, we found the difference, and we divided. So who agrees with those students? Okay, Ernest is sharing his response. Who else agrees? Just tell me, Miss, I agree with Kevin, Miss, I agree with Alan, Miss, I agree with Gerald. Who agrees with those opinions? Ernest, why don't you agree with Kevin?
Because there you don't divide, miss. You
Okay.
subtract.
Okay, very good. Gerald. Okay, very good. So in the first one, I asked you to give me the total amount of students present today, right? You need to add the amount of boys and the amount of girls. In the second thing that I asked you to do, I asked you for the difference. The difference, if many of you said 4, then that means that you subtracted the amount of girls from the amount of boys, right? Because you're giving the difference between those two. You did not divide. Let's have that clear. So do you have an idea of what are these things called? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division? Can anyone remember how do we call those things? If you remember, say yes. If you don't remember, just say no.
Miss, you can repeat, miss?
Okay, do you have an idea of what those things are called? For example, those things I'm referring to, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. How do you call them? Do you remember? If you remember, just say yes, and if you don't remember, just say no. Okay, Ernest, let me hear your idea. Ernest is the basic term of math. Okay, who agrees with Ernest? If you agree with Ernest, type agree, and if you disagree with Ernest, type disagree. Maybe, says Gerald. Yeah, I know, Ernest, that's your idea, but I'm just asking if they agree or they don't agree. Why? Because we will see if this is true in today's lesson, right? We will be covering a little bit of these things and remembering the correct name or term for it, right? So we jump to a little image that I have here. Just a moment. Where we will see what is happening in the scores. What do you think happens in scores? For example, when you play a football game or when you play any type of game, even an online game, you get a score. How do you get that score?
By your game development, miss.
Yes, your game development, right? But How do you get your final score?
Adding all your first scores, miss.
Very good, right? You need to add your score. So this is just one operation that I am presenting to you here, but today we will cover the four operations. The basic term says Ernest, but how do we call them? We call them the basic arithmetic operations, right? How do we call them? I just mentioned it to
The
you.
basic or operation of arithmetic.
Basic arithmetic operation. This include addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. These things you should have an idea of now, but we still have to cover a little bit of it so that you understand perfectly, right? Ernest, remember we are in a math class. We are talking English. We are not talking Spanish, but that's a good thing to mention, right? But as I mentioned, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are called the basic arithmetic operations. Those are the basic things that you will find anywhere in mathematics, right? Whatever topic you do, you will find those four things. So let's start with addition. Addition is the most basic operation of arithmetic. In its simplest form, addition combines two quantities into a single quantity or sum. So when we add numbers, we get a total, right? We have an example there, 75 plus 13 gives us 88. So we are adding those two numbers to get a final result. Why? We need to add, let's say, in order to have the correct amount of groceries, we need to add for us to be able to know if the money will gives us, right? And etc. We have many ways to add, but it is a basic. It is one of the most basic. Anywhere you go, you will add anywhere. And whoever tells you that is not true, this will not serve you in your life. This will serve you. Why? Because you need to learn to add. If you do not learn to add, let's say when you go to your job on when you get older, you get your job, and they tell you, I will pay you 45 a day, right? And if you know that in 45 and 45 for 2 days will be 90, right? But if you do not know how to add and they pay you just $60, you will be okay with it, right? And why? Because you do not know how to add. It is very important. Why? Okay, Ryan. In As I mentioned, addition is just adding two numbers and getting a total out of those two numbers. That is what addition basically is. But addition is important because you need to learn how to compute in order to complete many activities. Many, as I'm giving this example of your job. Let's say you have a job. And if you do not know how to add how much you will be paid in 2 days, as I mentioned, we will use 45. They pay you 45 a day. So you add 45 and 45 for 2 days, we have 90. Your boss knows that. But if he knows that you do not know how to add, if he gives you $60, you will be okay with it. Why? Because you do not know how to add. You do not know how to calculate your pay, right? Which is just adding. So that means that if you do not know how to add, your boss could take advantage of you, right? Like how you say they will chance you, right? But that is basically addition and how it happens in the real world, right? So addition is the most basic operation. You will find it anywhere in mathematics, right? So we have subtraction now. Subtraction is the opposite of addition, right? We know that if you do not add, you subtract, right? Instead of adding quantities together, we are removing one quantity from another to find the difference between the two. So when I asked you to find the difference, you were to subtract, not divide, subtract. Why? Because I want to know what is the difference between those two numbers, right? As I mentioned, subtraction is also very important anywhere. Not only mathematics, as I mentioned, you will find subtraction in any topic that you cover in mathematics. But it is also important in the real world. You need to learn how to subtract correctly. Now, I have a question. What happens, like, let's see this example that I have here, 785 minus 468. We know that the 5 there is less than 8, right? So what do we need to do to be able to subtract correctly? Who remembers? I think you covered this in primary.
Borrow, Miss.
Borrow.
Very good, right? We borrow. How much we borrow from our previous term?
1.
We borrow 1. So the number that we are borrowing from will now change, right? Like we have in that example. We are borrowing from 8. So that leaves us with 7. And we give 1 to the 5. So we have 15. And then we perform our subtraction, right? Do you have any questions with this type of subtraction? Do you know how to subtract?
Yes, Miss.
Right? You should know how to subtract. Nowadays we have a very good instrument that helps us with computing, right? We need our calculator, but we also need to know the basic. What will happen when we do not have a calculator, right? We need to learn how to subtract correctly. So this is subtraction. Subtraction is just the difference between two numbers. Right now we will cover some key terms that will tell you if you need to add, subtract, and etc., right? But remember, it is the difference. Now we move on to multiplication. Multiplication also combines multiple quantities into a single quantity called a product. In fact, multiplication can be taught as a consolidation of many additions, right? Why? Miss, why will it be called a consolidation of many additions? Because as I mentioned previously in the example of the 2 days, you are paid $90 because 45 plus 45, right? We could just multiply 45 times 2 and get our result. That is simply what multiplication is, right? For example, we have 22 plus 22. Or we can have 22 plus 22 plus 22 plus 22, right? But we know that our basic term there is 22, and we multiply that by the amount of times we have it. So we have 22 plus 22 plus 22 plus 22, we have 4. So we multiply that by 4 instead of adding, right? If you know your multiplication table, 22 times 4 or 22 times 2 will be shorter than to do 22 plus 22 with your little steps that we just made, right? So multiplication just combines multiple quantities into a single quantity called product. So the answer of 22 times 22, which is 44, is called the product. How do we call it? How do we call the result from multiplying two numbers?
Product.
Very good. We call that a product, right? We call that a product. So this, as I mentioned, this multiplication that I have here, you should have covered it in primary school. This is just a little revision, but you need to know the correct steps to multiply. We will practice some of this in just a moment, right? So, do you have any questions?
No, miss.
Any questions on up to now?
No, miss.
Too easy, Cesar. Well, I hope you remember correctly how to do these things, right? So division. Now division is the inverse of multiplication, right? Subtraction is the opposite of addition. And division is the inverse of multiplication. So remember those two things, they go hand in hand. Rather than multiplying quantities together to result in a larger value, you are splitting a quantity into a smaller value called the quotient, right? What are we doing in this one? We do not get, if you observed in multiplication, when we multiply two numbers, we got a bigger amount. Okay, yours says division is very hard. Yes, I know for some of you division is very confusing, right? But let's make this clear. In multiplication, when you multiply two numbers, the answer is bigger. It's way much bigger than what we had first. In division, we get smaller numbers. So if you are dividing two numbers and you get a larger number, you know you are dividing wrong. Why? Because in division, you are making smaller. You are splitting a quantity and you are making it smaller every time you do so, right? I have some steps here. Let's see, just a moment. Okay. I have 75 divided by 6. How do we do that in long division? As I mentioned, you could do that using your calculator, but not every time you will have a calculator with you, right? You will not go everywhere outside your house having a calculator in your bag. Although you're a teacher, like I think me and Miss Christie, we always have a calculator in our backpacks, right? But apart from that, what is the importance? As I mentioned, these basic operations are found anywhere, anywhere, right? Let's say you have a person is telling you, I am selling 10 things for $5. You want to know how much each one will cost you, right? So you need to divide. So let's take a look at some steps that are placed here. We have 75 divided by 6. You see it's kind of tricky. I know division is the one students have most trouble with, right? But if we divide, let's see, 75 divided by 6. How many times does 6 go into 7? Right? We need to divide 7 by 6. I have it, the example show is there. So how many times we can do that? Just one, right? We can just divide 6 into 7 one time. So we put our 1 at the top And then what we do, we multiply that 1 with the 6 there. So we have 1 times 6. And that answer, which is 6, will go under the 7, right? It will go under the 7. And what will you do with those numbers? You will subtract. So 7 minus 6 will give you 1. Now you have 1. But we have a 5 there to the right of 7. So we will bring that 5 down. And then we do the steps that we did again. We divide. Now, how many times does 6 go into 15? Just 2 times, right? Because 2 times 6 will give you 12. So that 12 goes under, the 15. Now what will we do next? What will happen next when we have our 15 and 12?
You will subtract.
Very good. We will subtract, right? 15 minus 12, which gives us 3. If you are asked to leave the remainder, you could say it is 12 remainder 3. But if not, you need to continue using decimals. But because we are dealing with whole numbers, we will not be using decimals in this case, right? So we will just leave our answer 12 remainder 3, and that is it, right? So we move on to the keywords that I mentioned. When you are computing for addition, you will be seeing add, plus, and, total, increase, more, sum, together. If you find this in a word problem or in any question, then you know you are adding. When you are subtracting, you see take away, minus, less, reduce, remain, take from, fewer, difference, how many more. Now in multiplication, we use multiply times product multiplied by group of lots of double times table. Division divided by share, divide into, divisible by, group each share equally, right? This is very important for you to know because you will do worded problems and you will definitely encounter some of these terms there. So I have some examples here, 983 and 572. We add. I have a question. When we add, where do we start adding from? Do we add from left to right,
Right.
or from right to left?
From right to left, Miss.
Right to left.
Very good, right? We start from right to left. So we know that 3 plus 2 equals to 5. 6 plus 7, 13. We put the 3, we carry the 1, and then 9 plus 5 plus 1 gives you 15, and that is your answer. Now in subtraction, what happens is that you carry, right? You need to borrow from the, you need to borrow from the previous if the number is smaller than the one you are subtracting from. For example, in the 450, we know that we cannot subtract the 0 from the 8, so we have to borrow. Our answer stays with 10. So 10 minus 8 is 2. Now that we have borrowed from the 5, we stay with 4. But wait, 4 is still smaller than 7, so we need to borrow from the 4, right? From the 4, and now we are left with 3 and 14 on the second column. So 14 minus 7 gives you 7, and 3 minus 1 gives you, sorry, this should be 2. This should be 2. I didn't realize this was wrong. But this should be a 2 here, right? 3 minus 1 is 2. So for examples of multiplication and division, I have there the steps that you need to do, right? 3 times 7 equals, oh, where is that? Oh, 3 times 9. Oh, but we start with the 2, right? 2 times 9, 18. We carry the 1. We do the, we have our first row. Then we do the second row. Remember that our last number, we just put there a 0, and we start our new numbers from right to left, right? We also have one of division. So if you want to copy this example, go ahead, because this really breaks down the division method. We have a big number there. So we have 8 does not go into 4, but it does go into 48 6 times. So we will place the 6 over the 8. We do that, we subtract, we bring down the 3. 8 does not go into 3, so we need to put a 0 over the 3. This will work as a placeholder. Now we can bring down the 2. So we bring down the 2. Now we know that it goes into 32, right? Now we can bring down the last 0. 8 does not go into 0, so we need to put a 0 over the 0 in the place value. Again, this will work as a placeholder. So the blue things are for the blue number in the tab, the red for the red, and the green for the green. So as I mentioned, this is just a basic revision because you should have known this. So I have 2 practice questions for you. Knew that quickly. We have first an addition of 344 and 579. And you have a division 2. So let's do that quickly. And we share our responses. Okay, you can say your answer for yes for addition. This is just a little practice. What did you got for addition? 923 says Alan. Who got the same result as Alan did? Okay, many of you got the same result. Very good. So now what do we get for the second one? I want to see your steps for the second one. So you will turn on your camera and you will show me that quickly. Okay, who wants to start off showing their step-by-step division through their cameras?
Both of them, Miss.
Could you repeat? Anyone has finished? No one? Anybody wants to share what they got for the division?
Me, miss.
Okay, let me see. Ernest, what do you have? Okay, Ernest has 94. 16 times 9 gives you 144. We subtract, we are left with 6. We bring down the 4. And 64 divided by 16 gives us 4. So when we subtract that, we are left with 0. So our answer is 94. Very good, Ernest, right? So your answer should be 94. If you need me to go over division tomorrow's class, we can do that, right? Because I know this is more challenging for some of you. So I think I will do some more examples with division tomorrow, and then we can move on. So the answer is 94. If you did not get the answer, try to find ways to do it for you to do the time. So to wrap up today's lesson, let's summarize the key things that we learned today. What are the key things that we learned today? Let me hear you guys sharing what are the key things you learned today. Basic arithmetic operations, very good. What about the basic arithmetic operations? And just one thing that you learned. Let's say I learned that let's say sum means that you can add. You can tell me, Miss, I learned that, or to summarize what we learned that the when we multiply two numbers, we call that a product. What can you summarize? What are the things that you learned that you want to summarize? No one? I just see how many of you? 1, 2. Okay, we can summarize the difference in subtraction. What else? Very good. We reviewed how to divide, multiply, add. Okay, which operation has its opposite? So we know that subtraction is the opposite of addition, and division is the inverse of multiplication. Okay, very good. So our final activity, have 4 minutes. Where and how can we use arithmetic operations? If you have somebody that is near you, ask him or her, where do you use arithmetic operation? And just a moment, I can't find my page. Just a moment. No, I don't want you to share to me in the chat box. I will give you a link for you to put it. Just a moment, I'm taking too long here. Okay, enter in that link and try to see if you can add a sticky note. I will present my screen right now. Okay. This is my screen. So you go to the little add here and you type what you think, maybe the subject, or just write something fantastic. Whatever you think. You could change the background. Let's say red if you want red your thing to publish, and then you publish what you have, right? So let's do that quickly. We just have like 1 or 2 more minutes.
Well, we have to write, Miss.
You have to write the question. You'll need to answer the question, where and how can we use arithmetic operation? Ask someone near you how to use it and insert your thoughts in the link that I just gave you, right? I think I should give you access to do so. Okay. We have construction of a huge building. When buying, ask your family members, where can I use this? Do you use it when you buy the groceries? So let's do this quickly and we return to our screen. When you go to the bank, very good. When cooking, business misses, very good. So we use it in business, but remember you should do this in the Padlet board. When shopping, office, very good. Anybody else can include their example here. So that is all for today. I will see you tomorrow. This is how we end our presentation. Please, or class session, I mean, please include something in the Padlet because I will be taking a look at it, right? So that is it for today's class. I will see you tomorrow. Okay, sorry. Do you have any questions? If you have any questions, you can ask me. If you don't, then you are free to leave, right? Goodbye, Ernest.
Have a nice day, Miss. Also to Miss Mai.
Thank you, and same to you, Ernest.
Bye, Miss.
Goodbye.
Bye,
Bye.
Miss Catzim.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye, Miss Catzim. Bye, Miss January.
Goodbye.
Bye, Miss Mai.
Bye, Miss Catzim.
Bye, Miss Janelle. Bye, Miss Mai.
Goodbye.
Bye, Miss.
Goodbye.
Bye, Miss Christie. Bye, Miss Janelle.
Goodbye.
Bye, Miss.
Goodbye. 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 Yeah, that was kind of confusing, yes. Division. Okay. Um, I have an issue with the undefined arithmetic operation. I was taking a look at the book, but I don't know if it doesn't have the page because I couldn't find the information there. So in my lesson plan, I haven't posted that yet because I I was just thinking that since I didn't find the correct information, then just to mention that we have undefined and defined, but that we will focus on defined. But I saw that the learning outcome stated that they need to know about the undefined too. Oh, okay. And check subtractions. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that was my only question. So, okay. Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Miss.
Morning, Miss.
You were the word at the beginning, one with God the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you are Christ. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is. And nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is. The name of Jesus. You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. And nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. Oh.